Sweet. All right. I'm not seeing anyone else kind of join in. So thank you guys for joining us today. Welcome to the second career series talk. Obviously, as you guys know by the message, Priya is going to be giving the second talk of the career series. And she's a scientific sales rep here at Protein Tech. She was our first ever brand ambassador in the US for us. So she's just going to talk a little bit about her transition from academia to industry and her role as a scientific sales rep now. So Priya, if you want to take it away.
Well, thanks for having me. Really excited to see you guys. Like, Frida and I were talking before we started that literally it was us and two other ambassadors, and now you guys have blossomed into this mm, taking up the entire screen, which is really cool and really exciting to see. Um, okay. I feel like I should know how to share things on Teams by now, but okay. Do you see my slides? Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yeah, we
Okay.
can see. Oh, wait,
Are
it's
they
on
like
presenter mode,
normal?
though.
Okay. Now.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay. Okay, yay. All right. Okay, everyone, hi, I'm Priya. I am a sales rep for Protein Tech. I cover Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Washington, D.C. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about how I got here and what I do. And then if you guys have any questions of or how I did what I did, I'm happy to answer them. Just like a little school background. I'm originally from South Carolina. I did my undergrad at Clemson. I studied biochem and genetics. And after I graduated college, I was kind of uh, confused as to what I wanted to do between like med school or grad school. So I did a gap year where I worked as a lab tech in parasitology lab, and that's where I learned a lot of like flow cytometry and IF techniques. And I'm emphasizing that because those are like things that, as you guys are learning from being brand ambassadors, that we at Protein Tech sell products that work for those applications. And so then I really enjoyed that time being a lab tech. So I was like, you know what, let's keep going. And I decided to go to grad school. So I went to grad school at the University of Pittsburgh, which is where I started planting my Pennsylvania roots that got me to Protein Tech. I did my PhD in molecular pharmacology, and I was in a DNA repair lab. So my thesis project focused on understanding protein-protein interactions. So I did a lot of Western blots, IFs, like growth assays, um, stuff like that. And really early on in grad school, I decided that the bench wasn't for me. You'll kind of learn from this meeting that I really like talking and I really like talking about science, but I don't really like doing it. And I learned that pretty early on in grad school. And so I spent a lot of my time at Pitt, um, kind of building my like resume, my like extracurriculars. So I was involved in the Graduate Student Association. I was the VP of Communications. So that's where I did a lot of like social media posting for our organization. I like made flyers, all that kind of stuff. And so I was like kind of dabbling in the marketing side of things. And so then I was like, well, maybe I want to use my science brain a little bit more. And my school had a science writing internship, so I participated in that. And that was really cool because we did these projects where we shadowed the science writers at the hospital and the medical school, and we helped them write blog posts, and we got to interview scientists about their papers and their research and kind of all that stuff that you see when hospitals have like big research articles that come out. They do all those like pieces, and where I got to see how they recorded, like they shot all the B-roll film and got to see like that kind of aspect of science communications. That was really cool. And then I was also in women in bio, because I really think that it's important to have these kind of like advocacy groups and have this like community for women in science. And like I said, I was really, really interested in science communications. So I like volunteered to be the chair of communications for that chapter. And that was really, I think, helpful. And then I think like one of the most important things that helped me get to protein tech was being one of the first brand ambassadors. And so um, how I got here was like super random. Frida DM'd me on LinkedIn, and I had to, or no, she sent me an email, and then I looked her up on LinkedIn to make sure that she was a real person, and then told me about this like pilot program they were doing. And basically all I had to do was promote the webinars and all the early career scientist programming that Protein Tech has. And it was really um, exciting for me to find a way to like kind of get into the industry and kind of understand like how things work on the industry side, because in academia things are a little bit more kind of more loosey goosey. So it was interesting to see how um, events and all of that stuff was getting organized and promoted at Protein Tech. And so by doing that, I kind of was working to increase the like name recognition of Protein Tech at Pitt. And by just like talking about the webinars, talking about all the stuff that we did, and putting flyers up around my lab building. And then they emailed me a bunch of like Protein Tech marketing supplies. And so I was like handing that out to my friends and my classmates and just kind of like raising the awareness of Protein Tech. And I guess I was doing well enough because my current boss, she ended up coming to Pitt for one of my for one of the vendor shows at Pitt, and she emailed me asking me to come meet her. And we really hit it off. And I was telling her that I was really interested in science communications, and I like talking about science, but I don't necessarily want to do it. And uh, just getting to know her, getting to know Tara, like I learned that that's kind of her journey as well. And so I connected with her on LinkedIn and told her to like think of me if she ever is expanding her team, or maybe after I'm done in school, if she could help me make that transition to sales. So I defended my PhD in September of 2023, but at that time, like Protein Tech wasn't hiring nobody. I was like still actively looking for a job. But one of the things that Pitt did was they make you take this like career exploration class, and one of the assignments we had to do was organize informational interviews. And so I set up a meeting with a sales rep of like an instrument that my lab used a lot. And she was telling me like she got her PhD, and before she really got into sales, one of the things that she did to like improve her resume was get into like teaching or lecturing at like a small community college. And so I started applying for those kind of lecturer, more like student facing jobs, because I think one aspect of sales that's important is like building interpersonal relationships. And so I got a job as an academic advisor at Pitt like right after I defended, and I did that for a couple of months before Protein Tech came knocking. And then I started this job in February of last year. So just like quick little over, like I feel like it's kind of boring to like look. I'm sorry, I'm trying to move this like little box with floating heads. So I can show my pictures of like kind of like generically talking about what I do. And I feel like it's really hard to kind of encapsulate my job, because when you think of a sales rep, you kind of conventionally think of the people that stand behind the booth with the flyers and the cool free stuff to get you guys to come and talk to us, which is all really, really exciting. And that helps like, raise the awareness of the brand. But other things that I like to do to kind of engage with my customers and the scientists in my region is doing like pizza and pizza with my tech talks, or like I do like these like coffee hours. This is a coffee hour at a student center in Georgetown. And so for me, when I was in school, one of the most like frustrating things was when the sales reps would come and talk to you when you're like right in the middle of an experiment. They were like, but they're usually nice about it. They're like, oh, do you have a minute? Do you have a minute? And you're like actively like pipetting, and you're like actively trying not to be like, no, I don't really have a minute, but I don't want to be rude, but like can't talk to me right now. And then they try to like shove a flyer in your face. I thought that was like the worst thing. So I kind of made like an internal vow that I did not want to do that. So I like doing events that bring people out of the lab and get them to come talk to me. And I think it's a little bit more like a low pressure setting, and people are a little bit more willing to kind of talk about their like problems, or like what they want out of like I guess like with like what protein tech cells, like what they need out of their like antibodies and other reagents, stuff like that. So just like, just to my day to day is like I think of it as like organized chaos. So just like starts off simply. This is the Mid Atlantic team. This is Tara. She is our boss, and she was the one who covered like the entire Mid Atlantic before she expanded the team to include me and Jacob. And so then I oops, sorry. Ah, what did I do? Oh, okay. Okay. Then this is me, Austin and Frida, one of my first big conference vendor shows, conferences. And so this is our table. And it was so nice to like, get to show all of our uh, products and all that fun jazz. Um, I like to find a way to make myself memorable. So I think that doing like themed tables is always really exciting. So this is like a Halloween table that I did. I dressed up as a Smarty Pants when I went to go visit one of my accounts, and the scientists got like a giant kick out of it. And it was really exciting because it's fun when people don't take themselves too seriously. Like it was really fun to see that at like Johnson and Johnson, a company that you would think is like very serious and serious. There were like scientists dressed up as like Shrek and Donkey, and like committed with the face paint and all that stuff, which is really cool. And then I think I just did this event. It was a tailgating event, so Tara and I really went for like a frat boy throwback to college theme, and I think, but unbiasedly, we had one of the more fun tables there. And then I think I think so far I'm the only one who's done these, but I've started doing ice cream hours, and I do my like favorite one to do is the one at Penn State, which is where I met Elizabeth. Like she's one of your fellow ambassadors now. It's really exciting. It's like a very low pressure way to get you guys to come out of the lab. You might get a cool stuffed Alice, and then you get some fun ice cream, and then we can talk about protein tech. And so I think that's really fun, and I think that um, is a I don't know, interesting way to kind of engage with the scientist. And pretty much like my job is essentially talking to scientists, figuring out what they need, and how best like protein tech products can, solve their issues. Yeah, it's like a little quick overview. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you guys have my email now. That's like a quick overview, but then I'm happy to take any questions and yeah.
Hi, I have a question. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for your talk. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm used to Zoom, so everything's in the wrong place for me. But yeah, so you mentioned lecturing at a community college. What was that experience like, especially right after grad school? And like what soft or hard skills did you learn that like really benefited you in your current position or in reflection or deciding your career?
Yeah. So I worked as an advisor for the undergrads at Pitt. So that was like it's a very different kind of group of humans to corral, going from grad students to like undergrads. And so basically my job was helping them like organize their schedule, do a lot of career development, a lot of like problem solving. And I think one of the biggest things I learned was how to deal with so many different types of people, like a lot of relationship building, because I think that is something that is almost impossible to teach. I think it's one of those things that you learn by doing. And I think there are very few jobs, there are very few like experiences that we can get in grad school where you can get that to happen. And I think for me, I enjoyed that aspect. It was kind of fun to like if there was like a student that really just like, didn't feel like talking or just was giving me like I was talking to a wall, not doing like giving me nothing to work with, trying to figure out how to like crack them and get them to open up and talk to me. I think that was fun. And I think that that kind of solidified that I wanted a career, like a people facing sales role. Um, and then like one little thing that I think really it's like so little is it got me out of my like fear of sending emails. So like in grad school, I was like terrified of sending an email that like seemed like, oh my God, I'm bothering them. Oh my God, like they are so annoyed I'm sending them an email. Like I had that like hyper anxiety most of grad school, but doing this advising job and emailing a bunch of like slightly older than teenager humans kind of like conditioned that out of me. And so now like I usually send like 100, 200 emails a day. And if people don't respond to me, I don't take it personally anymore.
Jayla, you had a question?
Okay. Like I don't know what to do with the hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have a question. I was wondering, how did you choose sales instead of, I guess, teaching? Since you had both of those experiences, it sounds like working with the city college students showed you that you liked people-facing jobs, but then now are in sales. So I guess how did you determine which one over the other?
Yeah, that's a great question. I I think like the difference between I think for me the teaching never was my like strong suit. Like I'm good with analogies and I'm good with explaining complicated concepts in a simple way, but I think that the way my brain understands something is probably not the and me trying to articulate that to a group of humans in a teaching capacity, I don't know would be the most productive use of anyone's time. And so I think like with the advising and with the students, I kind of learned that if there is like a structure or a product that I'm supposed to push or emphasize to the students, I realized I was pretty good at that. And I think that is like that behavior is like really good for sales. And so I think that kind of I think I kind of liked that I could use a little bit more of like a persuasion personality that is a little bit more useful in sales than in teaching. Because teaching, I think it's more of like I don't know if conditioning is the right word, but I can't think of the right word at the moment.
Kathy, you have a question as well? And then Mohammed after that.
So much, Priya. That was a great talk. Yeah, I was curious. You mentioned that your program had a course that required you guys to do informational interviews with different people. I was wondering how exactly that was structured and what were some of the useful things that you think are important during informational interviews? Like, how do you conduct them? How do you go about finding the right people to talk to? Kind of that
Yeah.
whole process.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that's like also another like good like soft skill to like develop is just like putting yourself out there and being comfortable with talking to strangers. So my first approach was finding people on LinkedIn that seemed to have like my dream career, and I would like request to connect them and like type in a little message like, hi, I'm about to graduate, I would love to like get to know you in your role. And I think it was like a 30% success rate of whether or not they actually took me up on setting up a call. And so I was like, okay, maybe I'll try for like a more direct approach. And so I started talking to the sales reps that would come visit our lab. And so I think they like directly had the job that I wanted, and they were selling and using things that I knew how to use. And so I think like it was easy for us to like first start the conversation about just what they were selling. Like, I was like asking them about like, I think it was like a thermocycler person that I think I was talking to a rep that sold that, and I was like, how did you get here? Or tell me about this thermocycler. And I think she at first thought that we were going to buy a new one. And I felt really bad when in the end we were definitely not going to buy a new one. I just needed to talk to her about her career. But I think like because I let her get through her like spiel for work, she felt a little bit more compelled to tell me about her career journey. And I like to do that with my like customers in my territory now. Like usually people that come up to my table at like vendor shows or any of those like free stuff fairs, like most of them usually start off by like tell me about protein tech, and then they wait and then they ask me, oh, how did you get here? Because they like see on my like business card that it says PhD, and they're like, how did you do it? And I'm like a little bit more willing to talk to them directly about it there, because they're not just like ambushing me being like, how did you get here, what did you like, if you kind of talk to them like a person, I think that I think people are definitely more willing to help.
And Mohammed, you had a question as well?
Yeah, thank you so much, Priya, for the presentation and sharing all the details about it. That was super helpful to know especially the extracurricular activities that you did and how all that shaped your path in a way. My question is more about um, more of the long-term career aspect of the sales rep. Like, what would it branch into? Like, what comes after? What do you think? Maybe on a personal level, what do you think of for later? Also, what are the options available after that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think going from, I think like the general upward trajectory of sales reps is like becoming a manager of some capacity. So I think like ideally, if I were to do my job right, I would make my territory so successful that I need a bunch of people to work under me, and then I would be in charge of them. So, like Pennsylvania, for example, is geographically a large state. So it would be great if I, developed the business and the um, accounts so well that I could get someone to like, I could split the state in half, and like somebody would cover the east side, somebody would cover the west side, and I would be in charge of them instead of me, driving 7 hours across the state. Um, so I feel like that would be like that's generally the upward, that's like the growth in sales, is you try to work up to being um like an account manager, regional manager, like just keep moving, like you just have so much business and you're trying to um delegate the management of it, ideally, I think is like um kind of where that usually goes.
Thank you.
Kathy, you have another question too?
No one else has another question. I was curious, you mentioned, so obviously you do some work in the office, you do some work at conferences. What does that split look like? And when you're not at conferences, what are kind of the activities you do and your goals? Like, do you
Yeah,
guys have certain sales targets, or what does that look like?
yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think ideally it's supposed to be like 1 office day, 4 days in the field, like in the perfect world. I think my split is usually like 3 days out, 2 days in, because there's a lot of like behind the scenes prep that goes from like meeting customers. So usually when I don't have shows, usually I have like table shows probably 2 out of the 4 weeks of the month. Usually I like to have some kind of like formal event where I break out the tablecloth and all the free stuff and all that. And then the rest of the time is kind of spent emailing potential customers and either setting up in-person meetings if they are within like a driving distance of me. So I'm based, I guess I forgot to mention that, I'm based in Philadelphia. And so it's easy for me to drive to any of like the Philadelphia based accounts, or like Delaware's like 30 to 40 minutes away. But if I need to go to like Pittsburgh or State College or other parts of Pennsylvania, like those, if I have people that want to meet with me, I usually set up video meetings unless I'm like already going over there. So the rest of my time is kind of divided between um, setting up meetings with potential new customers or talking to old ones if they're having any issues or if they want to like order more products. Um, so I think it's like a 40-60 split between like maintaining current business and then trying to find new avenues of like people to buy antibodies.
And Mohammed, you had another question as well.
Yeah, so I have this question, but I mean, I hope that like you haven't experienced this, because what if like there's a sales target and like the region doesn't meet it? Um, and so because I like in science we don't really um shoot for financial and sales targets, and that hasn't been our experience. So what is it
Yeah.
like? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think when I interviewed for this job and like other sales jobs, that's like one of the like that's the question they ask all the time is like, how do you feel about like goal oriented careers, and how do you handle like meeting or not meeting your goals? I think I got asked that question like 3, 4 times. Um, I think it definitely is like company specific of whether or not you are like get in trouble for not meeting your goals. Obviously, the the goal always the obviously it's always you strive to hit the goal. Like obviously you don't ever shoot for the bare minimum. And like knock on all the woods, in the year that I've been here, I've been doing pretty well. So I haven't had to experience that yet. But as like we all know in this like current political climate, it's a little bit harder now. And I think it's important to know and accept that sometimes if you don't hit your goal, like it's for reasons that are out of your control. Like right now would be like the perfect example. Like I could be doing everything right. I'm doing my shows, I'm sending my emails, I'm, talking to customers, I'm giving them discounts. Like I could be doing all of that. But if a lab doesn't have any money and they're not going to, they lost their funding, like I can't control that. And if I don't hit the goal because of that, like it's not anything that I did wrong. And it's just kind of being able to adjust and kind of look for other ways to hit the goal if possible, and then accept that if you don't, it's okay.
Gotcha. And I kind of have a follow-up question, if that's okay.
Or,
Was there like a training also that you went through once you like got into that position from brand ambassador, or was it like go learn yourself kind of thing?
um, I don't have any like formal sale. Like I didn't get like a business degree or anything, so I don't have any like formal sales training. When I was hired with Protein Tech, we had like a week-long onboarding process where I learned about all the different products that we sell and how to use the like software and all the technologies that we use in our day to day. But everything else after that was kind of like I was saying, kind of an immersive experience. You learn as you do it. Like we didn't have like classes on how to set up our vendor show tables. We didn't have classes on how to send an email, any of that. Like some of it was just taking from the experiences of when I was in grad school, like what I would have wanted to hear or read or see from a sales rep. I kind of use that to tailor my experience or tailor what I present to my customers.
Priya, do you mind, you can absolutely say no to this, but do you mind explaining a little bit more on like how commission-based salaries work? I know it's going to be different company to company, but like maybe a general trend you saw while you were interviewing, or even how Protein Tech kind of does it.
Yeah. It is definitely company dependent. So from what I've gathered, at least like in the life science companies that like I interviewed with and in with now, like we all have like a generous base salary, and then you get a commission check every quarter. And so I think I get like 10% of what growth I was able to generate. And so I think that that percentage kind of varies between company to company. But I think what's really important whenever you're looking for a sales job is to make sure that you don't get a job that is solely based, like your salary is solely based on commission, because then you would be like kind of more or less screwed in this, like in this current in this current funding climate. Because like if no one's buying anything and you're not going to get paid unless people buy something, that would be quite tragic.
His name. You have a question as well?
Yeah, hi. Hi, thanks, Spencer.
I,
Priya, this is just a rather a curiosity question, but so right now when we are working in the lab, the main goal is to learn a technique and then someone teaches you and you just refine that technique and do the best you can. It's not as
yeah.
simple with sales, right? Sales is a much more interactive and social thing that you someone shows you how to do, but then you have to figure it out yourself. So my question is, what do you think like makes someone better or good at sales? Like what kind of qualities you,
Oh,
if
okay.
you were,
That's a good
let's say you were
question.
hiring the salesperson, what kind of qualities you would be looking for?
That's a good question. I would look for someone who is personable. Now, that doesn't mean you need to be like super, super outgoing, because I want to stress that introverted people can be sales reps too. Like you don't have to be this like very shiny, bubbly human. You can also not be that. I think it's important to be able to um, be like authentic, and I think someone who is good at like problem solving, because things can go wrong at like a split second. And like if you're like talking to a customer at your table and the conversation seems to be going in a very negative, aggressive direction fast, you kind of need to be able to like quickly think on your feet of how can I turn this conversation around, so that it ends on a positive note. Like one example, this I like still to this day don't know how this happened. This one guy came up to me at one of my shows, and he was absolutely livid of the science that we use to make our antibodies. And I was like, I cannot help. I was like, what? He's like, why don't you guys clone it this way? Like you could do X, Y, and Z, and then it would be so much better. And I don't understand why you guys haven't come up with this yet. And I was like, this is great. This is great. He's like, and then he starts, he's really going on. I think this would really make Protein Tech a better company if you guys did it this way. And I was like, but I don't think the technology exists. And he's like, I know the technology doesn't exist to do it yet, but I think you guys should do it. And I was like, okay. And then at the end, he like takes a step back. He's like, Priya, this was a great spirited debate. And I was like, I think I said 2 words in this whole thing. But I think it was just like the fact that I didn't start like aggressively defending Protein Tech and the way that we do things, and let him, you know, say his piece and like, talk about science in the way that he wanted to. Like he left that interaction, you know, without a sour taste. And I think being able to like kind of keep your composure, um, and I think for me, I think like the biggest thing is authenticity because like I'm sure you guys have all interacted with different sales reps. It's kind of the worst when you can tell that they are like faking the niceties or like faking the the interaction to try to make the sale with you. And I think that w- that us at Protein Tech, we try really hard not to do that because we are really all scientists and we just want to work with you other scientists in like a collaborative way and not like a predator or not predatory is not the right word, like in an aggressive way.
I also just want to point out that at Protein Tech, like all of the sales reps have vastly different personalities. Like
Right.
you guys are all completely different, but I think
Yes.
you're right. The similarity is authenticity. Like when you guys talk to me, I trust what you're saying. And just like being human and
Yeah.
like that's very, very helpful.
Right.
But I liked that you pointed out that you can absolutely be an introvert that is also in
Yeah.
sales.
Yes. I want the record to reflect. I'm not shy. Like I will talk to anyone, but uh I do need my introvert time after like a long stretch of talking to people. Like usually after a conference or after like a big vendor show, I go into like full introvert mode. Like I cancel all my socializing plans and I have like full introvert time. And you're allowed to do that.
Mohammed, you had another question?
Yeah, sorry, I'm asking too many
That's
questions
okay.
here, but so another question I have is, how much of the wet lab experience is necessary for this? Like, if you have like had exposure to some of the techniques, but that um, like the, for example, the rest of the techniques that have the use for the products of the company here, um, do you think that would be a problem or an issue? Like, how much of it is important?
That's a good question. I mean, we sell a lot of stuff, and I'm going to be completely honest. There are like sections of our portfolio that I have literally never done the experiment before in my life, and I have relied heavily on YouTube to teach me about these techniques. Like our entire genomics portfolio, I was not a geneticist or a genomics human in any way, and I have relied heavily on YouTube to understand exactly what we're selling. Um, and I think that the reason Protein Tech hires the people that they do to be the sales reps is because we're all willing to put in that little extra step to learn about the stuff that we don't know about. So I think that's key. So like I am very knowledgeable about Western's IFs and flow because I did that all throughout grad school. Those are like bread and butter for me. But we sell stuff for like IPs. We sell like stuff for stem cell differentiation, stuff that I don't really have full experience doing, but we have other people like product managers like Afrida that are like willing to answer kind of like any of my silly questions that I don't know if it's something that we sell that I don't understand, or I'm willing to go look on the internet and read about what I don't know. And so that I sound smart when I talk to my customers.
So what I'm getting from yours is like the level of understanding of the technique is that we need for the job is the level that we can get by self-learning.
I think so. I think like the way at least it's how it's structured at Protein Tech, we have so many people that can answer any like super technical questions. But um I think the more that you know for yourself, the better. But it's like a security that we have like a whole like village of people that can help us if we don't.
Priya, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Obviously, you were a brand ambassador for Protein Tech, so you already knew a lot about the company, like trying to transition into that sales rep role. But how did you kind of like prepare for the interview prior to interviewing for the sales rep role and trying to transition out of being a brand ambassador to that role?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was a brand ambassador, I really only knew about all the like career webinars and all the stuff that like the not product related things. So I thought that was kind of like the surface level understanding of protein tech. And then I found one of the blue protein tech boxes in my lab. So that was kind of the only indication I knew that it was a real company. And so I didn't know much about exactly what we sold when I interviewed. And so I spent, I think, the like week before my interview just deeply memorizing the entire protein tech website and like reading all the old blogs, like reading all the like technical things. I I was like really, I don't know why. I was like very concerned that they were gonna quiz me on ELISA kits. I have like because it was like in the label or it was in our logo at the time. And so I was like, oh crap, I haven't done an ELISA since high school. Like what if they like ask me about the like technical science of ELISA kits? So I like started like hyper Googling and getting into the deep science of ELISA kits. They did not ask me about ELISA kits in case anyone was wondering. Um, I don't think I was asked a single technical question, but I made sure that I knew how to do every single scientific technique that we advertise on the website, thinking that that was the kind of questions they were going to ask me. But they were more asking about like if I was like aware of protein tech and like I could kind of list off a little bit more than the surface level that they just sell antibodies, because I think that was like key at the time, was knowing that they were more than just they were an antibody company, but like more than just that.
So, sorry, I just unmuted myself. I'm asking for another question. That's okay. Um, so you mentioned it's not many technical questions, but what is the theme of the interviews mostly around?
Okay, I will also say that I think that I don't know if that was like specific to because they were interviewing me or if it was for this job specifically, because I at that point had been the brand ambassador for like a year, and at the time my territory that I was interviewing for I was doing really well. So I don't know if that was the reason they didn't really ask me that many technical questions, but because I like interviewed for a job with NEB and they asked me like very technical questions about restriction enzymes. So I think it really just depends on the company. But for me, because I was interviewing with like the director of sales, and he doesn't really have a science background, he has more of like a business marketing background. So I was getting more questions on that side. So they knew that I knew the science. I think they were more concerned that I wasn't going to grasp the business side. So a lot of my questions were based on like business development and like sales and like goal hitting, goal oriented abilities, because I think that was what they were more trying to tease out, because they knew, right? Like we were trained as scientists, they know that we know the science background. I don't think that especially after we get our degrees, they are like pretty confident that we know that. It's the other stuff that is like hard to pick out of a resume that the interview usually focuses on.
And adding to that, prior to Priya's interview, I think she had helped us with a lot of technical material too. So we have like a RNA modifications guide
Right. Forgot
that
about that.
includes some scientific writing that Priya had done while she was an ambassador for us. So that came up prior to her interview. So I think, as she mentioned, like when they were interviewing her, they already kind of knew she had that scientific background. Because I will say that most often, if you have a scientific position at Protein Tech, you're expected to do a like presentation. Generally, it's going to be like on your research or some sort of scientific topic. I don't know if they do that for the sales reps, so that's why I'm not sure. But for
I don't
other
think
kind
they
of like
do, but yeah.
Okay, other in-office, science positions, you usually do like a presentation. And that would be like your technical test, I guess.
And then I'm gonna say your name wrong. I'm sorry. Adubola, you had a question as well?
Yes. Oh, you got
Kathy,
my
you're
name right.
next. Sorry, I saw your hand, I promise.
Okay, my question is, when you go for these conferences, do you genuinely find both students and say faculty that really tell you about, oh, I'm struggling with the use of these antibodies or this reagent? Do you really have good recommendations? So we've tried this, what do you recommend, or things like that? In conferences, do you get a lot of that?
Yeah, I think it's as the like protein tech brand increases, I do get a lot of that. So a lot of the times it's people that use some of our competitors and they tell us that, oh, they're having trouble with this target, and we look it up and we see if we have the target, and then we offer to send them a sample and test it out. And like most of the time they hadn't heard of us and they try our antibody and it works out really well for them. But then we do have like some like frequent customers that do kind of track us down. And if they're having like issues with any of their products, they definitely don't, they're not shy about telling us that. But we have like a really great technical support. So if that does come up, usually if it's not something that we can answer directly at the table, we make an effort to like connect them with the tech support and help them out.
And then Kathy, you had a question?
Yeah, I guess kind of switching back to your interview, in your experience, and maybe if Frida and Spencer can jump in, when you guys interview potential new hires, what are some things that make them stand out? What are some past experiences or qualities you kind of look for that kind of differentiate them from the group?
Never hired anyone before, so I don't really totally have an answer to that.
I can take this one.
Okay.
Because I did play a hand in getting Spencer hired, and I will tell you what Spencer did that really made him stand out from.
I want to hear this too.
One thing that was really nice is if a lot of people are going to come, like the whole point of the interview is really to brag about yourself, right? So a lot of people come in and say, hey, I'm really hardworking, I'm really organized, blah, blah, blah. But Spencer had like stories to back up when he was claiming, like, hey, I think like you were talking about like being on the soccer team or something, and you had like all these examples of ways that you could be organized, because to be in charge of the brand ambassador program you have to be very organized. So give us examples, and I think he was like one of the only candidates that really did that. So that would be like my main advice is just if you say something, if you talk about a quality, just make sure that you're able to back it up with either numbers or like anecdotal like stories or things like that. But that'd be my advice.
Something that I see too, obviously I only hire contract workers and not full-time workers, but something I love to see when I'm interviewing people is like if you really care about the role, like it's gonna stand out in your questions. Like I love when people ask the question, like, what makes a person successful in this job? Because it shows you want to do a good job, you want to be successful. So just asking questions like that and like writing down questions beforehand that show you really care and want to do a great job will always help your case. And then one more question for you, Priya. Obviously, you were a brand ambassador for Protein Tech, but if say you were like going after a different sales role for a different company, how would you kind of showcase that you worked in industry, and how would you like show them that being a brand ambassador like would help you get a different sales role at a different company?
Yeah. No, I think I made it pretty far in like other interview processes in the for sales before I got the Cody Tech job. I think they really liked that I was able to I think I think with sales, it's all about numbers, right? So we were talking about like goal hitting, sales goals, that stuff. I was really trying to use like a numerical approach. Now, I never got any of the data of like what I actually did to raise the protein tech brand in Pittsburgh, but I assumed it was positive, so I kind of used like positive stats, right? I said I increased like Pittsburgh protein tech traffic in Pittsburgh like 40%. Is that like totally, I don't know if that was actually the right number or not, but like I think like saying it in like a numerical way was good for my cause in applying for other jobs, even if it other companies' jobs, even if it's I think being able to show that I was able to hit a goal, and I think being able to articulate that and say that I like learned all about the company and I was like writing stuff for them and being like very involved, I think, and showing that loyalty, I think is what like corporate companies look for when they're hiring salespeople. So I think that's how I kind of like reframed the narrative when I was applying to sales jobs that weren't protein tech.
Yeah, since Priya was our guinea pig, she didn't have access to analytics, but we do track things now. So if you guys ever do want numbers, just reach out to me and Spencer, and we can always give you numbers that you can put into your resume if you want.
Anyone has any final questions? Doesn't look like it. Sweet. Well, thank you so much, Priya, for talking to the brand ambassadors. I know they really appreciate it and hopefully learned a lot. And thank you guys for hopping on. It's recorded, so I'll be sure to follow up with everyone and send the recording as well. But yeah, thank you all for joining. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Priya.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.